You'll need a glass cube vase to create this arrangement. Make sure it's clean and grease-free before you start, and remove all labels. Pour some clean water into the vase about 1/4 of the way up the sides. We're going to use 9 roses here in a grid formation. Prepare the roses and condition them. Strip away the remaining sets of leaves at the top of the stem and remove the storm petals. You can leave any green leaf-like sepals around the flower head in place for now and remove them later if necessary. You'll be left with a pile of leaves and discarded petals, so clear up as you go to keep your workspace as tidy as possible. Take your first rose and turn it upside down against the side of the vase so you can gauge roughly where your stem needs to be cut. Use sharp scissors, such as these florist scissors, which also have a serrated edge so you can cut wires with them too. Or use secateurs or a gardening knife, but these are sharp and best left to the experts. Cut your plant stems at an angle to create the biggest surface area to take up water. And even though we're working with a straight-sided vase, the base is curved, so the lengths of the stems will vary, but should still all be cut at an angle. Cut away less than you need to at first. It's better to gradually reduce the length of the stem than to make it too short to begin with. Don't worry, it'll feel as though you're cutting away an awful lot of stem, but that's fine. Once you're happy with the height, leave the first rose in place just in the corner of the vase. Select another rose and repeat the process. Leave this in water until you've cut the 3rd rose, then you'll have enough to hold the first line in place. Remember to gradually reduce the length of the stem rather than cut too much away. But don't worry if you make 1 or 2 of the roses a little short. They can be used in the centre of the arrangements where the other roses will hold them up. Don't be tempted to try and cut all the roses at once to the same length. You must judge each one individually. As you work, remove any further storm petals you spot or any damaged petals. Be careful not to hold the flower heads too tightly to avoid bruising or crushing the petals. Check the design all round. Here you can see some greenery, which is actually a sepal, not a leaf, but which you may prefer to remove to give a clean, crisp design. Gently lift the rose out of the arrangement and nip off the sepal so it doesn't detract from the design. You can also create the table centerpiece using florist's foam to support the stems. Florist's foam is available in 2 types, for fresh or dried flower arrangements, but the type for fresh arrangements is generally green. You buy it in blocks. You'll need around 1/3 of a block for the cube vase, and the block is already marked with divisions. Cut it with a knife. It doesn't have to be particularly sharp. Check the foam block against your vase, trying it for size, then slice it through with the knife. Soak the florist's foam in a bowl of water or the kitchen sink. The water should just cover the block. Set the block on the surface. It'll sink down as it soaks up the water. When it's fully soaked, it'll change colour completely to a darker shade. Put the soaked block in the vase and check you have enough space between the block and the glass to allow the aspidistra leaf to wrap around the block. If necessary, use the knife to shave a little more off the block. You can get aspidistra leaves in different sizes. Choose either one large one or a couple of smaller ones. Remove the tough stem, then check your leaf for fit. This will give you an idea as to whether it'll cover the block completely or whether you'll need to use sections of leftover leaf to patch in or totally cover the block. Lay the block on the leaf and wrap the leaf around the block. You'll see whether you need to trim the leaf and whether you need extra pieces to hide the block. You may find it helpful to use a glass-headed dressmaker's pin to hold the leaf securely. Slide your wrapped foam block into the vase and check it for fit. Look at it from all sides to make sure the foam block can't be seen. Remember, a table centerpiece will be viewed from all angles by the guests, and you're trying to create the illusion that the flowers are being held in place solely by a leaf. Trim away any extra leaf around the top of the vase level with the edge. Any extra pieces of leaf can be tucked in place now to hide all trace of the florist's foam. Now you're ready to set your roses in place. These should already be conditioned and with all leaves and storm petals removed. The stems for this design can be cut quite short as they're going to be pushed into florist's foam, so that the base of the flower heads will sit level with the top of the vase. Shorten the stems, cutting them at an angle. Gently push the rose into the foam block, holding the head firmly but not so tightly that you damage it. Once one row is in place, start on the second row and keep the flowers neatly aligned. Hold petals of adjacent flowers out of the way as you work, and push the stems straight into the florist's foam, not at an angle. Finally, set the last row in place. Hold the flower heads of the second row out of the way to create a little bit of room to work into. Although there's water in the block to keep the roses fresh, it's not a bad idea to top up the vase with water right to the top to avoid an obvious waterline. That way, there'll be enough water to keep it fresh for several days, even in warm conditions. If you need to transport the arrangement to a venue, save the topping up for when you get there to avoid spillages on the way. We've used square glass tea light containers for this design to match the cube vase, but you could use round ones instead. Pour a little water into the container. Then take a conditioned rose and strip away any storm petals. There's no need to strip off the leaves. You'll be cutting the stem so short that they'll be going anyway. Then just pop the flower into the cube. Make up the rest in the same way. You can make as many or as few of these as you like, depending on the wedding reception venue. They can be set at each place setting or set around the main arrangement. perhaps interspersed with the same containers holding only tea lights.